This podcast is independent from my studies at Texas A&M's College of Veterinary Medicine and Biomedical Sciences. This is intended to share knowledge and experiences in the field of veterinary medicine and to share the importance of medicine for the pursuit of science and its positive effects on the general public. What it means to be a criticalist.
Oh, that's tough. All right. So, yeah, I guess to me, like a criticalist is someone who's got to be able to think on their feet, be able to like in a moment's notice kind of drop what you're doing and be able to triage and figure out like this thing needs more attention right now. And then also being able to like know how to handle like a little bit of a lot of things. So I think you said it best once the other day. I can't remember what you said, but like truly, like I think you have to always be studying all sorts of different topics just so like when that situation arises you're like at least somewhat knowledgeable to be able to handle that specific scenario. And like it's weird because like when I think about like all the things that I've studied and like how like frequently something will come up that I'm like, dang dude, I've studied that before and like I'm ready for this one, but I know there's no way nobody else knows like what to do in the situation. And that just like I mean I think that feels really good and it's cool to like be able to help the patient and like be I guess the only one that knows how to handle that specific situation. So I don't know, to me I feel like that is when I like think about being a criticalist, like that's what I like am most proud about, I guess, and what I like to do the most. So I don't know.
Because from my perspective, when shadowing y'all in the hospital, you guys just sit back and kind of conduct
Hmm.
and wait for things to
Exactly.
arise.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that's the other thing is like you always have to be prepared to like because it could be slow for like most of the day, and then like by the end of the day, suddenly like you do 180 and you're like going 100 miles an hour when you were just chilling for the first like 7 hours of your shift. And so but I think being able to like switch into that mindset into like and like you've seen us, we goof around a lot and like definitely like have a good time. But then whenever it's serious, like everybody's super focused suddenly and it's like the vibe changes. And everybody's like in the zone, kind of doing what they love to do and what they know how to do. So I mean again, I think that's part of being a criticalist. And like I've definitely heard like other services, we all joke because there's definitely times when like other services maybe walk by and they'll be like, oh, on slower days, because usually like if we're busy, like nobody's gonna say anything. But if we're just like chilling, they're like, oh, like, it's slow in here, trying to like get a rise out of us or something. And like I've had situations where that's happened, and then like within like 2 hours, we're actually like saving that person's patient. Like something happens to their patient, we're like doing CPR on it or something, and it's like, they were like commenting how we were really doing a whole lot a second ago, and now suddenly like they
Yeah,
need our help.
it's
So
like, look who
like,
came back.
yeah, so that's kind of funny, and like those situations definitely do happen. So
Do you like the emergency aspect of your job or the critical care
critical
aspect?
care, yeah, like I don't know, it's something about emergency. It's like kind of the same thing. You're always like having the same conversations. I think there's like a lot of fun to be able to know how to handle those situations, but like it is somewhat of like a cookbook in my mind sometimes. Not just like I'm not thinking about the actual like cases, like more so ER. I think it's more about like how to handle the owners and how to like, speak with them. And, when you have tricky cases, like that one case can ruin your whole week. So like how do you handle that situation better next time so it doesn't, you know what I mean, kind of throw you off and like mess everything else up that you're working on. So I think learning how to handle those situations, or at least how to like personally, like and like internally handle them, if that makes sense. Because sometimes there might not be anything you can actually do to change the situation, but then how to like internally like manage those like feelings and whatever's going on, so that then you can stay focused. And best example is, there's an intern I'm working with right now. They're brand new, right? Like just started, and she is like every year there is an intern that like gets like the worst cases ever. And like again, just so like in the ER specifically, right? And so I'm sitting there in the ER, right, kind of conducting, like you said, the interns, the primary ones receiving the cases, talking with owners, managing the patients, making the decisions. But then I'm just there, right, kind of helping them. They round their cases to me. They tell me everything that's going on. I stay up to date with what's going on so that when something happens they can't handle or they want a little bit help with, right, like I'll help them, figure out that issue and how to overcome whatever they're dealing with. And this one intern, dude, every year there's always someone, and she's just getting hit with like horrible situations, like sexist owners, like owners that are like asking her if she's even a doctor. And like I know she's doing a great job, but like it is really, I think, truly like the people that she's dealing with. Like she communicates to me very well. Like I know that when she's going out to speak with those owners, like she's having a similar like conversation. So I do truly think that like it's not how she's handling it and how she's presenting these things to the owners. I think she's just really getting hit with just some mean people. And it that can really get under your skin, you know what I mean? Like one of my triggers is when someone asks me if they could speak to somebody else. Is there somebody I want a second opinion? Right. And like that'll be my trigger, but I know like everybody's gonna have their own triggers and like there are very similar triggers, right? And the common one is right, like, oh, you look really young. Like, how long have you been a doctor, right? And so she's getting like a lot of those people. She's getting a lot of cases of like dogs that are getting or dogs and cats that are sick and they can't afford care, and so it's just tricky, like tricky, like both mentally and client communication wise. She had a situation where like a dog had you know came in for like kind of a routine thing, like did everything perfectly, textbook, like nothing out of the ordinary. Dog seemed totally fine. When review the case, it's like everything was perfect. Like, there's nothing that was done wrong with the case. But then the next day gets an email from an owner that's like that owner like saying like, oh, my dog dying in my lap, like swearing, like, saying how she did such a horrible job. But like the other day, like even in the client comms talks about how like they were grateful for the help and they were so nice, but then now like they're getting emailed about how like you're such a horrible person, you killed my dog, like and all this stuff. And so she's getting in like a bunch of like hard situations. But like when that's all happening, she's still laser focused and like these cases are coming in, she's able to triage them and she's able to, do difficult procedures for the first time. She's never done them. And like she's just an excellent ER clinician because like, right, she has to be laser focused in these like, difficult situations, n- you know, with all this added pressure, these people on her. And I've seen many like interns and residents like with an eighth of that level of pressure just crumble, and she's just taking it, like she's taking it and she's like still like doing great with her patient care and coming up with plans, and like she's letting this stuff bounce off of her. And I think that's like a lot of what like is like, that's what you have to be good at. Like you can be good at the medicine, but like that doesn't mean anything when just like it just feels like you're getting rained on constantly by things you can't control, and so that's where like I don't really like because like you can just get in a funk like that and just get hit with all of these horrible scenarios, and like they just make you feel like crap. And you have to get good at like learning how to internally handle those situations and navigate. And like when you talk to someone who's like, oh, I've been an clinician for like 10, 20 years, like those people, they know how to internally handle it. Like that's what you have to be good at, really. Like, right, the medicine is like easy. So in my mind, I always like, you've probably even heard me say like is easy. Like you only got so many options, right? There's only like, especially in the middle of the night, right? There's only so many diagnostics available to you. There's only so many people you may be able to call for help. And so like it's easy just from the standpoint of like you only have so many options to choose from. So at some point you have to cut your losses and be like, this is what I can do. Whereas when it's you're on critical care and you have every resources available to you, you're like you can't cop out like that.
Yeah.
You're like, we got to keep going. Like, what's the next step? And that's hard, and that's it's a lot of fun. But like in to me, it's kind of easy because you're like, you've done everything you can. Like, there's nothing you can do past this point, and that's usually not the case in critical care. So I don't know. That's kind of how I think about them, and when I like one more than the other, I think that's the main thing I'm thinking about.
How do you maybe let things bounce off of you, or how do you compartmentalize when things get tough or things
Um,
are kind of out of your control?
Dude, I've tried to explain this to people before, and I don't know how like to do it well. Because it makes sense to me, but like when I just like try to like use it to like coach, like again, this intern that's getting rained on, I just feel silly saying it. But like to me, I honestly like have to feel like I'm um like I play a lot of video games, so like in all honesty, like in video games, like you like try to jump up the mountain and you fall off and die, and then you try again and jump up the mountain, like, and but like I'm not dying. And so like what I have to do is I have to like kind of put myself in this like mode where I'm kind of playing a game, and like I'm not actually the thing that's doing it. I'm like in like some sort of like non-physical body, and like that's what's actually doing it. So if something bad happens, right, if somebody's pissed at me, they're not actually pissed at me, they're pissed at like my character in the game. And so like that's how I kind of like practice, is like I'm still like, controlling the character, but like in my mind, I'm not that character. I feel like that's how I have to do it. Because, right, if you think about it, you like, and then that's one component of it. The other thing that I kind of do in my mind is, um, I have to like, and this is gonna sound like really messed up, I think, to some people, but like I think this is what I do is I have to like pretend that like this patient that I'm working on like isn't actually a creature with feelings and things. Like I can't try and make a connection with them in that way. Same thing, I have to pretend almost like that they're a video game. Like, I know that in the video game it's not a real thing, right? And so I almost have to do that same thing because if not, if I get emotional, that's going to affect my like ability to think, my ability to like actually like help them. So I can't like build an emotional connection. I like do, like I definitely do, like there's no question about it, but I think I have to like pretend I'm playing a game almost, if that makes sense, in every way, shape, and form, so that like when you die in the game, I'm not like upset that I actually died. It might be a little bit frustrating, but like in critical care, like things die all the time. You can't like let that stuff like hit you and like people that are listening to this and maybe they're like, oh, that's crazy, like that's I don't think I would ever be able to do that. Like I get that, but like I see like clinicians all the time, all right, because I'm training them, right, and I'm training a lot of clinicians that like don't want to do ER, right? Like they're not trying to like fake it. They're just trying to get through sometimes, right? So they can then go do something else. So like I see these situations where like those doctors don't build those types of barriers to protect them, and like do they crack under pressure, and like they have horrible things happen, and like if they were more focused, they maybe been able to like prevented that thing from happening or something, or at least like that's how I perceive it. So I think really effective clinicians, like they have to like do something, and I'm not yeah, I don't I'm sure that not everybody does the same thing that I'm doing, right? But like everybody probably has something that they're doing if they're like one of those really good critical care clinicians that can prevent those things from affecting them like in the situation.
It sounds like you have to externalize everything in,
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
because
I,
if you let everything in, then right, you make those
yeah.
connections, and at least in the moment, I can imagine that people get into vet med just in general because they enjoy the connection either to animals or to
Hmm.
owners, and so kind of thinking about going into an emergency situation, saying, "Hey, don't do that,"
Yeah.
or at least maybe put that off until
The
the
end.
situation's
Yep.
over.
Yep.
Because if you think of it like, at least in my mind, right? If you're treating a dog and you're like in the moment thinking, "Oh, this is the dog of somebody who really cares for this animal," and
Hmm.
maybe it's a little kid and they've grown up with this animal for
Hmm.
their entire life and they don't really know what lot. And if you think go down that train of thought,
Hmm.
you're just distracting yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, and when you say something that makes me think about one thing that I do too that I think is like relevant is so I typically think that the patient that I'm working on, like again, maybe it's like, an abstract thing that I'm working on, right? But also I'll pretend like it's my own pet, right? Like I think that really helps me make good decisions because right? Like that's the most common question that you get from the owners. Like, what would you do if it's your own pet? So I always try to like be like, okay, yeah, I'm playing a game, but like right now I'm trying to fix my personal pet. Like, what's the best thing that I can do right now? And like, I need to stay focused because I'm trying to help them. You know what I mean? It's like truly like you can't. You know what I mean? I'm trying to tell myself like if I feel my emotions getting high or something, it's like all right, you gotta back down a little bit. Like you're trying to help your pet. So that's one thing that I try. I feel like and do as well. I think it definitely makes me make the right decision because right sometimes it might be about money, right, or it might be like about do everything and money's not an object, and so like sometimes I have to like try and pretend I'm almost that owner, but I'm like working on my own pet, so I try to put myself in their mentality too, whatever they're telling me, like if they're base this more off of like money's not an object, or base this more off of you know quality of life and them not suffering, what I mean. I truly try and like do what they want. I try to like mimic what they would do if they were me, if that makes sense.
So kind of right with empathy, we talk about putting yourself in other person's shoes,
Hmm.
and then I guess what you're describing is also going the other way, where putting them in your shoes, but
Hmm.
in your own
Yeah,
mind.
yeah.
Do you think that thinking of the patient as your own dog ever like crosses the line over into like you're starting to get too emotional about it,
No,
too
no,
connected?
yeah, because that's the thing. It's like as if I'm playing a video game trying to save my dog, if that makes sense. Like so.
There's still a separation.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if if they do die, it's okay because it's my own video game or something. Or if the owner does get mad, it's fine because they're mad at like the NPC or whatever. So I think that's how I like have to handle it in my mind. I don't know. And maybe that's not what I do, but that's what I think I do.
I can imagine that people, maybe not in like medicine in general, that might listen to that and go, "Oh, then you probably don't care."
Exactly.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
like if you did the opposite thing and you were connected to every patient, then you would
hmm
just get bogged down
That's
and
what I'm
you would
saying. Yeah,
crack.
yeah, I see it. I see it every, like every year there's always like at least one, new doctor that like they're so either attached to the pets or they like are so fixated on like keeping the owners happy or something that it leads them to make wrong decisions. Right? Like I think there's times where like the owner they may be like telling you what they want, but that actually like this is going to be what helps your pet. Like this is what we need to do, but they're still so fixated on not upsetting those owners and telling them maybe what they need to hear, that it like makes things 10 times worse. And I think it's because of an emotional like desire to do that. And so I think separating those emotions is like how you really have to be more efficient and more effective.
Yeah, I don't know how I would favor in those kinds of situations, at least not yet.
Mhm.
There was one day, it was a Monday. I remember it was a Monday because one, I worked out that morning pretty hard and then came into shadow. And there was a code at like 9 a.m.
Mhm.
And it was the first actual code I've ever seen. And the patient didn't make it. And we were doing CPR for like 16 minutes. And for the rest of the day, I was just like in a just fog.
Yeah.
I could not. I
Mhm.
For whatever reason, I just couldn't think. And
Yeah.
by the end of the day, I was like, I just need to go home. It wasn't even my patient.
Yeah.
I just didn't know. I've never been in that situation before,
Mhm.
and I didn't do anything. Y'all were the people who were
Yeah.
doing the stuff. And no, after that, I was like, okay, whatever that is, I can't do that again because if
Yeah.
I was in charge, then I would just been
Yeah.
out of commission.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, no, it's tough. Like imagine like ending the code and whenever we finish a code, like the first thing we like to do is like immediately talk about what we did. Like I don't know if you saw that, but
Hmm.
we're always like, what went well, like what could we do better? And there is always like this point where you're like if you're the one who's, supposed to be the one to say that sort of thing, right? Where you're always like you don't really want to, but you're like, all right, we got to do this, like this is, and then we got to keep moving. So like, it's definitely not an easy thing to do, I think, in a lot of situations. And like codes are like it's weird, man. Like you'll be running the code and you're like laser focused, and it's me. Like I don't know if there are other people who get like emotional after codes, but definitely like immediately after, like when you're like kind of allowed that moment to like you don't right like the patient is either back or like in most cases right if they didn't make it like I feel like it's usually when it happens but especially if it's a patient you've been working on for a while or you already had a connection with those owners or something you can't be emotional like while you're running the code right but immediately after you're like definitely it's like almost like an overwhelming like and it definitely happens to me and like you may like I don't think I've ever like broken down into tears or something because again I think like usually there's just like I got to move on to the next thing so I don't think I really have like afforded myself that like time and maybe it is like a bit of just like right you're raised like don't be a sissy sort of thing like it's probably part of that too but like if I do like maybe once or twice I've kind of like try and cry but like definitely like in most situations like I feel that like wave come over me and I like kind of push it back and I'm like stay focused so
One of the funny things that I noticed after the code ended was one of the technicians, which all the technicians were like on it. They were
hmm
going, and they knew what they needed to do. And then afterwards, one of them just shouts out, "All right, everybody, drink water," and then moved on. And I was like, "Okay."
yeah yeah
It was
uh,
just funny.
yeah no I feel like that's like really really yeah it's true that's true of the year for sure like move on to the next thing.
Do you think that working with a difficult client um, is harder than working with a difficult case? I don't want to say a
For
difficult
sure. Yeah,
patient.
yeah. Yeah, no, like the hardest part of the job is like definitely like dealing with the owners. And again, that's another reason why like critical care is a little bit nicer than ER cuz like in ER like the people that are coming in like right they like sometimes don't really know what small animal ER is, right? Someone just told them to go here because their pet's sick, right? So they don't even know what they're getting themselves into. Whereas like by the time like those owners have made it through the ER into the critical care service, like they've already dealt with several, you know what I mean? Ideally, like several people, and they kind of have at least an idea what's going on, or they've been in that situation before. They know they want to be there, so like they already kind of know what they're getting into, and so like it's a little bit easier on the critical care service to like communicate with some of those people. But in the ER, you're just getting sometimes God knows who, like bringing their pet in looking for help, right? They might be coming in thinking it's free, like a lot of them, or well, not a lot, but like more times than I can count, right? Like people will think that like they're coming in to get free services or something, right? And I don't know if it's because, in human healthcare maybe that's a thing, but um, a lot of people will be shocked when you're out, you're going over the plan with them and you're like, this is what we need to do. And they're like, yeah, yeah. And we're like, we need to do this. We need to do these diagnoses. And we're figuring what's wrong. They're like, yeah, yeah. And you're like, all right, well, it's probably going to cost about this much. And they're like, you know what I mean? Then they freak, they
Mm-hmm.
freak out and they're like, what? And so like, that's hard in ER, right? But again, like when you're on critical care, like they've already gotten estimates from people before. They're not about to think that anything's free, So, yeah, no, dealing with like communications is definitely like the hardest part of the job. Like it's when you have owners that are just like accepting recommendations, like don't have financial constraints, like um, are kind of level headed about the situation already, and maybe
They've done it before.
yeah, yeah, they've done it before. Like it just makes things so much easier. But like in ER, you get, you know, I would say at least 25% of your owners per day are giving you pushback about like at least 50 to 75% of your plan. It's like, um, you know what I mean? It's like you know what you want to do, and so you kind of have to be good at like thinking, okay, well, guess we're gonna do this instead.
I would guess, I don't really know the answer to this, but I would guess that a lot of that probably has to do from people's experience in the human healthcare world.
Hmm.
Because you go to the ER, they're doing it just straight away. They're
Yeah,
doing whatever they need to do, and they can figure out the billing later. And there's people have
exactly.
healthcare,
Yeah.
usually, not everybody, but
Hmm.
usually, and there's a whole system, good or bad. There is something there, and then in vet med, some people's animals are insured, but
Yeah.
for a majority of them aren't. And
Yeah. So
it,
it's basically like a credit card.
yeah, it's
If you
like
don't,
going to get your car worked on. They're going to be like, all right, this is what we got to do, and this is what it's going to cost.
yeah,
Or these
exactly.
are how we need to figure it out, and this is what it's going to cost, but
Hmm.
we're still not going to have it fixed by then.
Yeah.
So, do you
Yeah.
think that the insurance world should kind of grow within vet med?
I
Might be a
mean,
loaded question.
yeah, yeah. Like, definitely there needs to be, I guess, more awareness of pet owners that insurance is a thing, and at least, kind of having an understanding of like what the average like vet bill is, like in emergency presentations. Um, and being able to like at least even have that savings fund. Like I have pet insurance, but I even at times I'm like, do I just like, put that money in a savings account or so? You know what I mean? So like I know it's tough, and I think some people like might be like, man, I've been planning to start that savings account for a while, or been planning to get insurance for a while. Maybe they like had the have the resources, but they're not ready to drop like 10 grand right now, and like that's what it is sometimes. You know what I mean? So like I think even just like an awareness of how expensive things are is probably beneficial for like most owners, but like the insurance itself, like sometimes it doesn't necessarily help because there's some insurance companies in the veterinary world where like, and this is the majority of them, where you still have to pay everything up front and then you get reimbursed after the fact, so like I've definitely seen cases where owners will have insurance, but they then still have to like not accept your recommendations because they still don't have the money to pay up front, even though they've been paying for this insurance policy. See what I mean? Like, you're right, it is kind of a loaded question. So I think it's just like more awareness about all of those things in general would probably be what's needed, but it's hard enough to even, you know, educate the populace about like pet insurance itself. Like, there's some, people who don't even know that like pet emergency hospitals exist, let alone that like they can take their pet to one and then that, oh, it's like 10 grand and you can have insurance for like that would like blow
Hmm.
some people's mind,
Yeah.
So,
Which is kind of funny to think about because it's understandable that like that seems like an older school of thought,
hmm.
but that happens with like materials like your car. and
Hmm.
um and then you ask some people and it's like, do you care more about your dog or your car? And they're like, oh, my dog,
Yeah.
like obviously. And then it's
Hmm.
like, well, you have all this money into your car and your dog, like you're like, oh, this food costs this much. That's like, that sucks. And it's like, it does. But, at any point, like health problems can arise
Mhm.
just out of nowhere. And right? If you
It's
go to
true.
a ER, it's not uncommon to be like, all right, this is going to cost 5 to 10 grand. Do you
Mhm.
have that? And everyone's like, well, obviously not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I, because obviously all of the insurance companies and policies are different and there's all these nuances and it'll change forever and ever and ever. And you
Mhm.
kind of mentioned the idea of putting money into a savings account just over time and letting that be your safety net,
Mhm.
which is probably a good idea. And if the average person was responsible with money, that I think that would
Mhm.
work. But do you know there's a big podcast called Financial Audit.
Never heard of it.
It's really funny. Nowadays has a lot of I don't know, they do what they can to kind of make it outrageous and
Mhm.
for whoever comes on. Anyways, this guy Caleb Hammer, he um, knows a bunch about finances and money and stuff, and he has like people come on who has like crazy credit card debt, crazy student loans, all of these tough situations, and he like goes through all their finances, like an audit, and then hammers out a plan. That was an unintentional pun on his name, but
Mhm.
kind of figures out a plan on how to get rid of the debt. And it's really interesting, but almost everybody has like credit card debt who goes on, and maybe because they do like find people, or at least they say that they find people that are in really tough situations. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on the show.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of a bias towards the worst financial situations.
Got you.
But in my mind, I'm like, how many people out there are in very similar situations and are just staying in that tough spot when they could easily get themselves out of it,
Yeah.
from doing like a couple of things, like not buying more credit cards,
Yeah.
not transferring credit cards onto other credit cards and stuff like that. And so, you know, it would be really cool to be like, oh yeah, all pet owners should put money into a savings account and just let it lie.
Yeah.
But what happens when that person maybe doesn't have a lot of financial discipline and
Yeah.
then, their
Car
car,
breaks down.
yep,
Yeah.
or they need a new refrigerator or an oven. And
Mhm.
then they're like, well, that money's there. It's
Exactly.
easier to grab that than work another 20 hours this week.
Mhm.
So, um, I, it was an undergrad that I built the mental philosophy about insurance because I was like car insurance and health insurance, homeowner insurance, renters insurance, like all of that existed forever and ever and ever, at least in my world.
Mhm.
But pet insurance like is somewhat rising in the culture, and so it kind of forced me to think like, why in the world would anybody actually do this?
Yeah.
And um, insurance as a whole seems like you are investing into the unknown, and hedging your bet that something bad will happen.
Mhm.
And, it's easy to be like, oh, I want to, in the end, spend less money after doing insurance. Like, well, in reality, you're kind of buying peace of mind.
Yeah, so I was about to say it's like peace of mind, really.
Yeah, you're not being like, "Oh, and, at the end of it all, I saved money." It's like, well, if
Yeah.
that was true, then an insurance company would go out of business immediately. Like, it
Yeah.
wouldn't work. If everybody made
Exactly.
money
Yeah.
or lost less money from
Yeah.
that process. So, immediately I was like, it's not about saving, you know, money as compared to not having insurance. It's just like ease and peace of mind
Yeah.
along the way. And I think you also mentioned that people go in and still need to be liquid that money before the insurance pays them back,
Yeah.
which like just flips everything on its head, makes it
Mhm.
all kind of
Right?
pointless. Um,
Exactly. No, seriously, I was having to tell an owner, um, not even 2 weeks ago, like, was in that exact situation, and I was like, their pet needed, like, more time in the hospital, and they'd already been in the hospital for, like, 5, 7 days, so, right, they're, like, running out of, like, their disposable income, and I had to tell the owner, like, "Dude, like, we just probably need a couple more days, like, you paid for this insurance, like, you have to find this money somehow. You know what I mean? Like you've gone this far, like we're not going to stop now. Like please, like for the love of God, like find some more money and then eventually you'll get reimbursed. But right, it was like and I had that conversation and they're like, you're right, you're right. You know what I mean? I think they were able to like find the money and come up with it, but like I don't they probably had to borrow from somebody or something. You know what I mean? Like it was probably something like that, but I think we did the right thing. We're able to like move forward with the treatment and then eventually like they can get reimbursed. But yeah, it definitely it complicates things, you know.
Because like in the human world, right, they have a robust system
Mhm.
internally with hospitals and stuff that figures that out on like
Yeah,
the on their own, and then you get billed what, a month, 2 months later, and you're like, what is
exactly.
this?
Yeah,
And
right. And then you can freak out.
yeah, but the right, again, I said this earlier, for better or for worse, that is how that world works, and I'm not
Mhm.
in it. But the uh, in my personal experience, our family's dog in the clinic that we went to,
Mhm.
we kind of all had a discussion about, hey, should we get insurance and all of this? And the clinic was like, hey, do what's best you think is best financially and what will help you guys mentally. But they're like, just so you know, we don't have a system in the clinic to figure it out. That's all on you. Like, you
Right.
have
Yeah.
to contact the insurance and be like, is this covered? And figure that out on your own.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, they're like, hey, somebody has to pay
Yep.
us money.
Yep.
Whether it's you or the insurance, it doesn't matter. Like, we just need to be paid.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it would, in order for the insurance company or insurance system to work within vet med, there needs to be cooperation with like clinics
Yeah.
and insurance. But then you get closer to the human world and all of
Mhm.
those issues. So I have no answers.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you bring that up because like I completely forget that that's a thing too. Like I'm so used to like the owners that like have the pet insurance where I'm just because yeah, like I've only spoken with a adjuster from one of those insurance companies once. It was like one time they like called
Mm.
me to ask about like what I was doing and if it was indicated and like they were happy with the conversation and everything was fine. But yeah, like I forget that that's a thing because like I'm usually just like they're gonna figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like they might not even know that. Like I forget that that's yeah another hurdle to get over.
I mean, I can imagine in 20 years that would be a big selling point for clinics. Like, hey, we
Hmm.
have insurance like internally. What not maybe they don't have the insurance company, but
Yeah,
they're like, we'll
affiliated
handle
with
the
yeah.
insurance internally, so you don't have to, and kind of make that, especially the emergency process, a lot easier. Because
Hmm.
I, you know, that's the main thought that I have when it comes to insurance. What happened? What do you do when you didn't expect an
Hmm.
issue to arise?
Hmm.
A lot of owners probably think like, oh, spay, neuter.
Hmm.
Maybe they have some cosmetic procedures that they do for their dog,
Hmm.
whatever. But outside of that, what happens when the CCL tears and you're like, why is my dog limping?
Hmm.
But it's not the most painful. Like, is this a bad thing? And you're like, hey, this happened over the weekend. And it's like, yeah, it's gonna cost you 8 grand to fix it, and you're like, on top of all the stuff that we did today, and you're like, what?
Yeah,
But he's fine. Like,
yeah. That's
he's
insane. It's
limping,
insane to
but
some
he's
people.
fine.
Yeah.
So outside of that, or on a different topic, you mentioned that you teach the interns and the residents that go through emergency,
Hmm.
and does the critical care team have interns and residents specifically, or is that also tied to the ER?
You know, um, if you're referring to like an emergency and critical care specialty internship, no, we don't have one of those right now. There's a intern program where there's 11 interns right now, I believe, and that's distinct from like the different residency programs. But I am like on the intern training committee. I have like my own like little mentees that are interns. And then I'm obviously training like ECC residents, and then I have like ECC residents that I like mentor as well that are like specific to me, but like obviously like we mentor all of them. You know what I mean? Like just because they're not necessarily tied to me on paper, like we kind of like take them all under our wings, you know, and they're all kind of our little mentees.
I didn't know that within the internship program, as they circle around the hospital, that you had individual um, mentees
Hmm.
under you.
Yeah, I do because like I am on the intern training committee, and like I think there may be some people that like maybe not. No, I think like the interns are specifically tied to like the committee members. But again, like I feel like that's still somewhat irrelevant because again, there's plenty of people in that hospital that like aren't on that committee that like love those and you know what I mean and like do everything for them to train them and get them as good as they can be before they have to leave. So um that's why it's like yeah, I've got some that I'm specifically like associated with, but like I try to like help them all equally, you know, in the same way. And if like any of them needed help, I would try to help them, you know.
What's your teaching philosophy when it comes to that?
Yeah, so I think for me, I think people learn best when they're comfortable, when they're able to like make mistakes and they're able to um you know not feel they already have enough pressure from what they're trying to learn and they're already like somewhat uncomfortable from that. And so having somebody that's there to help them and to make their situation feel more comfortable, you know, whether that's like how you speak with them or how you help them kind of learning their learning styles and trying to like be like, oh, they didn't like the way I said that. Let me try and say it different. This, you know what I mean? I try to like, I'm not, oh, that's how I say things. So you're just gonna have to get used to it. You know, like, no, I try to like figure out how I can make this person feel the most comfortable as possible so that they can learn as best as possible. You know, like that's what I try to do. Oh, this person like doesn't want to hear in the moment that they're doing something wrong. Like they would rather like afterwards, like kind of talk about the mistakes and like, you know what I mean? Like try and like but everybody's different, you know? And so I tried truly to like make everybody feel as comfortable as possible. And I think a lot of that comes down to like learning them and their personalities and hearing how they respond to criticism from other people and things so that you can try and like, you know, be better every interaction.
Do you ever have the conversation of, you know, hey, I'm gonna, or I will teach this way, and it's like, is this good? Is this bad with you? Or, would you rather me act like this? Like you mentioned, waiting after a particular procedure to be like, all right, these are the things that you did
Hmm.
wrong instead of doing it in the moment. Like, do you have those conversations beforehand?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes like if I just feel like that we're like vibing really well, because you know it really is. You're just like, are you working really well with this person, or like is everybody getting along and having a good time? You know, because like when you know when you're vibing really well with different clinicians, like it's a good time. You know, we're helping the patients. You know, we're helping owners, and like I think you can just kind of feel like something's off. Like they're either I can tell that they don't feel like they're doing good or something. So you know, like I feel like those are maybe situations where I'll either tweak what I'm doing and see if there's a change in the environment, right? In the mood. But if something's not working out, then yeah, I'll like kind of don't necessarily take them aside, but I'll be like, hey, like, you know, is there something that I could do better? Like, I really want to help you, like, you know, get better in these situations. So, like, how could I be better? I feel like that's usually how I would handle it if possible.
You're pretty good. You're a pretty easy guy to vibe with.
Yeah.
I
Thank
feel
you.
like
Thank you. Yeah, likewise.
it always seems like if I ever had a question, I would bring it up to you, and you're like, "All right, these are all the things," and you just went down this rabbit hole of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The best moment that I can think of was when I asked you about SIRS,
Mm-hmm.
and you were like, "All right, SIRS is a bad term, and let's go into sepsis and all
Yeah.
of these other things." And I was like, I didn't know that this was what I was going to get from that question, and
Yeah. Yeah. You open a can of worms if you ask a criticalist about sepsis.
it it seems like that. Also, you mentioned earlier that, you like the knowing something that maybe not anybody else knows because
Mm-hmm.
why in the world would anybody study this? And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
rarely ever shows up, but in the moment, like now it is here.
Yeah.
How do you, I guess, how do you remember it all? How do you learn that stuff?
Well, first off, like it interests me, right? Like, how do I still remember like Macrorhynchus hirudinaceus is the pig worm? You know what I mean? It's just like it's something I think is funny. You know, the name is funny, so I'm gonna remember it. And it's like, it's just weird that like somebody called this pig worm that, and I'm just never gonna forget it. So like, I feel like most things that I remember, it's because it interests me. And I feel like I didn't like nothing really interests me like throughout like my grade school, and so I think there's just like a lot of dead space to fill, and then like when I went into veterinary medicine, all this stuff was so interesting, and I just had I feel like a lot of open shelves to pack stuff with.
So, like grade school, is that including high school?
Yeah, yeah, like I was just a troublemaker, and like I think I got lucky, like, getting into A&M. Like, I don't know if there's just, like, an automatic acceptance or something, but I feel like that's probably the only way I got in.
And you, where are you from?
I'm from Texas, yeah,
Okay.
the Colony, Texas,
Yeah, okay,
so,
that's right.
I
I
was
was like,
like I
you're nearby from where I
yeah,
was.
yeah. Where'd you grow up?
Louisville.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah, we had
Um,
this conversation. Yeah, Vista Ridge, man.
yeah. I also was a horrible student in high school. I didn't even get automatic acceptance in undergrad. I don't know how they let me in. Um, it was my school was huge. It was like 950 in my class, and now
What
it's like
school?
Hebron High
Hebron.
School.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Actually, just recently went back to for our band director's
Interesting, yeah, yeah.
retirement
Dude,
celebration.
I was thinking about band too because I was in band and like we played like Hebron. I feel like weren't y'all like one of our biggest competitors, right? Like Hebron was
Yeah.
damn good, and like I feel like we were always like comparing ourselves to Hebron. So
Yeah, there were a lot of musicians that were really good, and I was just
yeah,
among them. I was not at the top of the chart. I was just
yeah,
there,
yeah. I feel
did
that.
my time. Going into undergrad, you were an animal science major.
Hmm.
You don't strike me as the animal science major type.
Yeah, yeah.
What
No,
got
that
you
was a
into that?
mistake. That was a mistake. I think. I mean, so I'm the first like of my family to like try to, become a doctor, or, get real deep into education. Like my mom went to a little bit of school, and she like supported me to like, do whatever I wanted to do. And when I decided like I want to go to vet school, she was like, doing anything she could to help me go. But the thing is like we just didn't have any like knowledge about like how to actually do that. And so like to me it was just like common sense, right? Animal science, veterinary school, like that's literally like the decision that I made. Like that I didn't do any like research. Like I didn't know that, right? Like to me, like I didn't even know that like researching would have been beneficial in that situation. Like
I did. I'm not kidding you. I did the exact same
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I bet there's a couple people, on this planet who like probably could we could all have like a little party and just like we've all done it. But yeah, I think that's why. But yeah, no, it was a mistake. I think I should have done like biomedical sciences or something, right? Like I think that would have been the obvious choice. Or I've even had classmates that like somehow got into vet school like doing English and they like loved English and they were able to like do all the things. You know what I mean? So like I probably could have done more research and like gone down a different path that maybe would have been more enjoyable. But I don't know. I feel like I just kind of recklessly bulldozed my way, and like took the most complicated paths possible to get where I wanted to be.
hmm One of my
Yeah.
buddies, he's a finance major, or he was. Right, he graduated and he's in my class. He got in his first try, like, but he got a BIMS minor, and his whole philosophy was like everybody's going to be either BIMS or animal science, like
Hmm.
all the hard science stuff. But everybody at some point is going to be involved with the finances of a business, and they're not going to be adequately equipped.
Hmm.
And so he's like, I'm going to be a finance major, but also take all the courses that I need to get into vet school,
Yeah.
so I can have something different. And I was
That's
like,
cool.
wow, you put so much more thought into that than
Yeah.
me. Um, yeah, when I first started in animal science, like it was COVID, so I didn't really like know anybody going in,
Hmm.
and didn't really like meet anybody until like the animal science 107 lab, where they're like, all right, let's go have some hands-on time with some sheep and goat and
Yeah.
cattle, and I was like, I never saw that before. So like, there's not that much
Yeah.
livestock up in the DFW
No.
area. But what was undergrad like?
Um, Undergrad was hard, man. Like, um, again, I never studied like in high school, and like I went, to A&M all 4 years, and like I just when people ask me like was it hard, I just always remember like when I was in my first year eating at Sabisa alone, like after just like a horrible day probably of just getting reamed with like material that I had to like somehow learn. And I like called my mom and I was like crying. I was like, dude, this is gonna be so hard. Like, I don't even like I've never even studied. And like it was like me like coming to realization of like what I was gonna actually have to do to become a veterinarian. And like
Mhm.
I'll just never forget that moment because it just was like, dude, this is gonna be the shittiest like 4 years of my life, or like longer in my case, right? But like I pulled through and it was I'm not like people like get so mad when I say this, like friends and things, right? But like I'm not a smart person. Like I just studied a lot of veterinary medicine and I learned a lot of it, right? And so like I would think I'm smart in veterinary medicine, but like other than that, like I don't think I'm a smart person. And so like I had to really, really work to like get through my undergrad and veterinary school. I definitely was never partying. Like my best friend and roommate like was in like a fraternity, which like honestly was like a blessing because like he got invited to all the cool parties and like there was always like something fun to do. But I was like pretty much always studying. But like, for like the big parties, like, dude, you gotta come to this one. So then I could like get, I could do like some fun stuff. So like I did, occasionally get out, but like nobody knew me there. I didn't know, I didn't like have like a bunch of friends and stuff. Like I was just always studying in order to like get the grades in order to get into vet school. And then same in vet school, right? Like undergrad, like I don't feel like really prepared me very well for vet school. So then here I am in vet school and I feel like I have to do it all over again, like another 4 years. And I didn't like have a lot of like clinical experience either. Most of like my veterinary experience was like working with sheep and research, and like I did like grow up working in a small animal practice, but it was just like GP. Like we didn't really see emergencies. So like I just like definitely was really envious of like my classmates that like I knew like worked in ERs and like had that background because especially like looking back on it now, I'm like, man, they were so much more prepared to just have some frame of like reference and some context of like what we're learning to do actually. I don't know, like because like I don't think if you've never, there's plenty of like vet students who've like never seen how a small animal ER works, right? And like if and like I knew I wanted to do something like that. In all reality, I wanted to do internal medicine, and then eventually I realized like actually what I want to do is ER. I just didn't even know that that was a thing, right? So, yeah, like my schooling was definitely difficult, and learning everything I had to learn like just took a lot of time in my beanbag at my dorm and at my apartment. Yeah. Yeah, I would say like I had probably like one or two like good friends like all throughout that I like would hang out with every once in a while, like girlfriends pretty much all throughout. But like I didn't like really go out and party like and stuff like that. Definitely was never a thing.
I feel like that lifestyle isn't conducive to most people making it into vet school.
Yeah.
I know a handful of people, and I believe that it's because they're extremely talented and
Mhm.
gifted
Yeah.
that they go and they, have fun
Mhm.
quite frequently. And they
They're
did an
definitely the
undergrad,
savants. Yeah.
and they made it in there. And I'm like, you're one of the best of us, and
Uh-huh.
congrats. But
Yeah. You
I
could do so
definitely
much
couldn't.
more. You could do so much more.
Yeah, I definitely, when I was an undergrad, did not party. Um, I feel like I don't know if COVID helped or not because I'm naturally a shy person,
Mhm.
but I was in my dorm constantly.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until later in the fall of my first year that I was like, oh, this like kind of like what you were describing. I was like, I need to do a lot in order to get into vet
Mhm.
school. I think somebody told me that the average GPA of the person who got into vet school that year was a 3.8.
Mhm.
And I was always a 3.5 kid in high school, like try enough to get
Mhm.
by. And that was how I was taking undergrad. And it wasn't even because like, right, I wasn't going out and partying and stuff. It was just I didn't
That's what you
care.
did. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I realized I was like, oh, in order to do that, I need to get almost entirely A's,
Yeah.
which I've never done before. And then I was definitely like, yeah, I'm not partying. Um, and it wasn't like there were that many parties for me to go to anyways. I think the only thing that got me out of the house was I played lacrosse for most of my life, and I
Mhm.
found that A&M had a lacrosse team,
Oh, that's awesome.
and I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'll go out there. I'll
Yeah.
make a fool of myself, not knowing anybody. And right, it was again during COVID, so they made you wear a mask with your helmet on, and they split the team in half, and you couldn't cross midfield, so half the team was on one side, and half. So if somebody
Because of
was,
COVID reasons?
yeah, they're like, if someone's sick, only half the team will get sick now, and it's like,
What?
it was ridiculous. Didn't make sense. None of it made sense. You couldn't cross into another field because you could contaminate into some.
Yeah. So at least then there's like one team to play, right?
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention there was no one else in the entire complex. Like we were the only people, and they were still like, "Don't go to that field." I was like, "Come on, guys,
That's crazy.
what are we doing?" Um, but no, the even then, like they would all go out and party and stuff, and I was like, "I'm gonna go back and
Yeah.
study the cattle breeds." which I've forgotten most of them
Yeah,
anyways.
unfortunately. I forget the name of the one that's out in front of the vet school. Like,
Yeah.
it's Santa Gertrudis because, like, I just recently forgot it and then, like, had to relearn it, but yeah.
What about learning do you enjoy?
But yeah, I mean, I think it just goes back to, like, because what I'm learning it was different, like, when in vet school, like, I think I learned it because like, it was new, like, it's what I wanted, and, like, it actually really interests me, and so, like, again, it's kind of like it's easy for me to, like, get interested in something and want to learn it, like, when it's that, fulfilling feeling, um, which, again, like, organic chemistry did not have that feeling, right? Like, it's like when you're studying that veterinary medicine, like, I definitely just, like, was like, "Oh, yeah, this is awesome," and I don't know if at the moment it was, like, because I'm gonna be able to help more animals, right? But now it's like, the more I know, like, the more I'm gonna be able to help or at least, be able to help owners, like, understand situations and why this is happening, because like, that's definitely, like, one big difference of, like, working ER after my residency. It's like, I feel like I'm actually helping those owners in those situations when, like, there's nothing else you can do anyways, Like, I feel like I could still do something and help them. So yeah, I think being able to like learn something and then be able to apply it and like again, either help an animal or help an owner, like that's awesome. So like yeah, learning is to me really cool, really fun if you can like try and, you know, maximize how much you can help in the moment.
What guides your focus on the next thing that you're trying to learn? Because I can
Yeah.
imagine that there's always a giant number of papers being published on a
Mhm.
giant number of topics, and
Yeah.
some of them get into the weeds that
Mhm.
I like. If I I had the chance to read some like genomic papers,
Mhm.
and
Those are tough.
yeah, I was like lost the entire time.
Mhm.
And how do you, I guess, guide your
Continue like learning.
yeah, like
Yeah.
what do you choose to do?
Um for sure like there are certain topics that like I feel very knowledgeable about, and so I at least try to stay aware of like new papers being published on those topics, so I can always like, you know what I mean. Even if I'm like busy and like I see this paper just came out, like I'll just like, bite the bullet and I'll just try to like read it right then or something, you know what I mean? Or like read it that day just because like I try to stay definitely on top of the things that I feel most knowledgeable about so that I don't think that that's like a false knowledge. You know what I mean? I like to know, like, I know everything about this topic because then like I kind of know when I don't know, when nobody knows the answer to something, right?
Hmm.
That's sometimes helpful to know, like, nobody knows the answer to that. And I know for sure because like I literally know everything about this topic.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I like that feeling, and so, like, trying to be able to, like, immediately, like, read new papers when it's one of those things that, like, I feel like I already know everything else about, right? Just to try and confirm, like, yes, this is something I already know, or no, this is something new that I didn't already know about this, right? Like, that is definitely something I do. The other thing is, it depends, I guess, too, like, where right now it's like it has to do with like, my podcast. Like, I think I study while I'm working on the different episodes. And so it's kind of like whichever, realm of the textbook that I'm in that at that, point of my podcast. So that's where I am right now as far as studying goes. When I was studying for boards, it really was honing in on those things that I knew I didn't know, So now it's like a different part of my life where like I can kind of study. I could not study, right?
Yeah,
But
you're like
yeah,
your
yeah,
you went through
exactly,
residency, you got the
exactly.
credentials.
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely not study and maybe like nobody would know for a while. But no, like I think I try to study things that I know most first, and then it's really helpful to like be subscribed to like the different journals that like matter to you, right, like JVEC or JVM, and some of the big journals that we study, and you get email reminders from them, once a week sometimes about like these journals that are coming out, and like I definitely don't just delete those emails, right? Like I'll always read through and see like, all right, which of these papers do I need to read? And then I'll like download them, put them in a folder to read later. Or if it's like that folder is already getting backlogged and I need to read this one now, I'll just again like bite the bullet and read it now. So like staying, I mean, that's how I kind of stay at least up to date on journals is like just get up into those listservs because like they're gonna blow up your email at least once or twice a week about the new papers that you need to be reading.
So that's how you kind of see the new things that are emerging,
Mm-hmm.
because I can imagine that somebody produces a paper, and then how does somebody know about that paper other than
Yeah.
maybe in that point in time, you know, they're like somehow questioning the same thing that you're questioning, so they look it up on PubMed, just like
Mhm.
how we all do when we are trying to figure out a specific answer to a specific question.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like if you're like, I know these things, let's say you're an ophthalmologist and you're like, I right, you know all these things about the eye, and it's like,
Mhm.
well, what's like that's a large topic. How do you know what is being done on these specific things within that large topic?
Yeah.
So it's the
Emails.
journals that will be like, hey, here's all the stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know if everybody does it like that, but it's definitely the easiest way. I don't know if I'm missing things, but I don't think so because that's also how we kind of like come up with journal topics for journal club. There are like websites too, like specific for specialties that will like kind of coordinate and pull in journals, like that would interest critical care veterinarians or surgeons or whichever kind of like website you're kind of subscribed to. But I don't even mess around. I feel like truly just getting the emails, like, and just making sure to read them. Like, I definitely would never delete it because, like, I'm always scared that, like, I'm gonna delete the one that's like actually gonna matter.
Hmm. What about human med? Does a lot
Mhm.
of what you focus on and what you learn about mapped at least from human stuff?
Oh yeah, like I don't know if this is. I imagine it's probably not the same for surgery, like because right, I mean, it's probably pretty similar because you're like, at least like, oh, this, procedure was developed. Let's see if we can adapt it to veteran. But there's different anatomy, right? So, with critical care though, like I feel like everything is just taken from human medicine, like right from the hemoperfusion treatment that we did yesterday to like the mechanical ventilation that we're doing to like CPR,
Hmm.
right? Like transfusion medicine, point of care ultrasound. Like we're always just like saying like what are the people humans doing? All right, let's see if that works, small animals, and like we try it and like 9 times out of 10 it does, right? Like with your study, right? We're like we're basically using factor 10s that are like human measurements, right? And we're using their, reference intervals and what they consider, therapeutic thresholds in humans. And we're just like using that as our gold standard in veterinary medicine. It's just like, um, constantly are we like looking to humans and just kind of like hoping that it's going to apply to small animals. And then when it does, we're like, phew, all right, like let's move forward with that.
Like all the base work was already done.
Yeah.
Let's see if it
Yeah.
actually applies.
Usually, yeah, and I think like now we're getting into the realm where veterinary medicine is getting more specialized, right? And now I think we are kind of getting a little bit more caught up with human medicine because like when I was in vet school, like I feel like what they were telling us was that like veterinary medicine is usually about 10 years behind human medicine. Um, have you ever heard something like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay, because that's I feel like what they were teaching me, but um there's definitely like when it comes down to hemoperfusion and therapeutic plasma exchange, for example, like we're in line with like what they're doing in a lot of cases, and like we're like trying like we're kind of like staying like pretty close to what they're doing. Like I'm using like up to date like human guidelines when like formulating our protocols and stuff, so like I think because veterinary medicine is getting more specialized, like I would kind of challenge that like 10-year thing right now, at least like with certain specialties. Like you have to imagine, right? Even think about like I know nothing about ophthalmology other than like what I need to know to survive in the ER, right? But like I would imagine that they are like looking towards human medicine every single day and trying to stay like right in line with them too. Like I think that's innovating and also like with constant influx of like new veterinarians and everybody trying to like get into right most of these residencies like require research in order to get your um accreditation and so like what better to research than like this thing that they just did in humans that worked, let's see if we can get it to what I mean, so like that's basically like I think how most of us live our lives in veterinary medicine.
It might be a new development. The idea that veterinary medicine is getting closer and closer and closer to the location that human medicine is.
Hmm.
So, like you said, because I've heard it as well. The vet med is 10 years behind human medicine,
Hmm.
and that was probably true at some point in time, and it was
Hmm.
probably even worse before then.
Yeah.
And as we get close, like farther into the future, that gap is just I feel like going to diminish.
Hmm.
And if I had to guess why, I feel like it's because of people's um, emotional and financial willingness to do whatever for their animals,
Mhm.
because it's really easy for people not to think very hard or to think of all the options that you can do to treat an animal when the owner comes in there is like, I have $200, fix them. And you're
Mhm.
like, well, we're not even going to think about imaging.
Mhm.
We're going to try and do some basic diagnostic of uh, once and then move on from there and
Mhm.
give you some suggestions. But the the amount of depth that I think is possible when it comes to treatment within vet med, I really think the limiting factor is the owner's uh, uh, choice in doing so, and I think a lot of that has to do with money.
Mhm.
And just like the culture nowadays is, my dog is my child kind of
Mhm.
thing. That's a common
Yeah.
situation. I mean, the I've seen it a number of times, and right, my experience is very little, especially compared to yours. But I've seen it a number of times where a new couple comes in. They're like, "This is our first dog. We each other independently have never owned an animal before, and we don't know anything." Kind of situation. And so you're walking through all the basics, and um, they're like, "Yeah, we're willing to spend a bunch of money," as compared to like um older individuals who are like, we grew up with farm animals,
Yeah, yeah.
where if the dog or the cat is not acting right, like
Mhm.
we euthanize, and
Yeah.
that's the only option.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true, and there's definitely, like a two sides to that too, right? Like you definitely have the people who like want to stay old school, but I mean, if you look in the lobby of the large animal hospital at like any given time, like majority is like older folks, right? Like I think the majority is like, probably people in their 50s, 60s that are like seeking the best of the care. Um, yeah, probably like 40s to 60s, I would say is like kind of your average owner. If you're not necessarily in ER and critical care, because like on ER and critical care, like we're kind of gonna deal with everybody. But again, when you have those that are like kind of representing to the internist like once a week, right? Like I think, or oncology, right? So I definitely think there's the two sides of it, but you're exactly right. Like whenever you have like that older owner come in, you're like, it's gonna be one end of the spectrum or the other.
Hmm. No
They're,
in between.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, again, I think definitely making generalizations, but that's definitely like kind of sometimes how I think about it. So.
Did you watch The
I can't, man. I can't. It's too.
Pit?
It's. I watched several episodes with Lily, and then eventually I had to ask her like, "Can you just watch this when I'm not here?" Just because like it feels too much like what I do, you
Hmm.
know. I will say like every episode on the pit, like it's intense, right? Like it's a busy day. Like they're having busy and also just like shitty days, like bad stuff's happening, right? And they're having like difficult owners, right? But like, patients, and they're having like, interpersonal issues and whatnot, and like all that stuff happen, right? Like that's literally my job. Like horrible day. We've got 8 patients that are all doing poorly, and all these other services are having patients that are doing poorly, and they're coming to us for help. And then one of my residents tells me that like this bad thing is happening in their life. You know what I mean? Like it's literally my day in and day out. And so it's entertaining from the standpoint of like, wow, that's realistic. But I can't watch much more of it. So
Kind of like a good job, you guys. You stressed me out.
yes,
I can't do
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Do you think that they could do something like for vet med?
Maybe, but like I just think that again, when you start bringing the finances into things, like it would get some hate, like euthanasia, right? Like, and how that's approached. Like it's definitely approached super differently in, humans, and like that's a daily basis for us, right? And so like I think it seems like it would be cool, but then I think actually when you like had the finished product and we're watching it, you'd be like, okay, I think it's a little bit less cool. And that just comes from like some experience. So, I did my internship at Dove Lewis, and there actually was like a reality show, ER medicine, that was like filmed at Dove Lewis. And you could probably still find it like on the internet today, but it was like on cable TV, like, in the probably 2010s. And everybody in like, and so like when I did my internship there were still a lot of people there who like remembered the filming and like had their experiences with it and like watched the show and stuff. And so like it was really interesting hearing like their side of their experience. And by far, pretty much all of them were like, yeah, it's like really hard to like film the good scenarios, right? Like it sucks because like they come in to film this reality show, they've got a limited window to get, footage, right? And there's 20 cases happening at any one time, and there's only two cameramen, so we're going to pick these two cases. And like inevitably, like they're always going to be the cases that like do horribly, right? Either from like, from the owner's perspective, from the patient's perspective, and just like it just doesn't look good on camera, right? So like if they did like a scripted show, right, it'd probably be a little bit better. And so I probably just have those biases from like, the people that I talk to from, and right, they say like even when they watched the show, they were like, yeah, just like it didn't capture the moments that like you think of that are like this is awesome, right? Like, and so like maybe making it scripted would probably be more appropriate.
Yeah, more complete
Mm-hmm.
of what the situation actually is.
Mm-hmm.
Because right, the whole the pit show is scripted.
Mm-hmm.
Those things didn't actually happen, but like they are realistic in the fact that they can happen. And yeah, I don't know what I would do if there was a camera right in front of my face and they're like, "All right, do your job." And it's like, "No, go away." Um, that the whole the medical shows just in general um are funny in theory because right you every season you got to do something even more and more dramatic. And
Yeah.
the Grey's Anatomy comes to mind, and just watching the show I'm like, one, again, not a human,
Yeah.
like med student. I'm not going to be a human doctor, but like very similar principles. And like watching him do surgery I'm like, like what is like
Mm-hmm.
wrong, all of this is
Mm-hmm.
wrong, what is happening? And like there's bomb threats and stuff. I think one of the funniest things I saw online was like, somebody needs to study this hospital because every year there are terrorist attacks, bomb threats, and
Grey's Anatomy.
yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what is this one hospital? But no, the idea of making a show out of it, I feel like it would be a if you actually did something super realistic, it would be a mix between like The Office and
Yeah.
The Pit,
Mhm.
because there are those days, at least
Yeah.
when I'm like shadowing in the ER, it's like we're waiting
Yeah.
and we're
Uh-huh.
chatting about things.
Yeah, 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 completely unrelated to veterinary medicine. Yeah, I agree. Like, I like definitely like had fantasies that there would be like a comedy about like small animal ER, but like I think the other side of it is like some of the stuff that like we think is funny, like would probably be perceived as like really dark to a lot of other
Yeah.
people. And like again, I think it just goes back to like coping with what we deal with day in and day out and like the darkness of what we do and like bringing comedy to it is like a really good way and healthy way to cope with some of those situations, like definitely something you don't want other people to see.
Hmm.
But at the same time, like when I was like thinking, oh, this would be like a great episode, if you're like thinking about it from the perspective of somebody that doesn't have any of that background, it probably wouldn't be a great episode for them. So I don't know.
I mean, yeah, we're all used to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I also heard something online. It's like if you ever want to hear the darkest humor in the world, like go to the technicians and nurses.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they got it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes like I'll hear dark humor around the hospital. I'm like, even I'm like, I gotta walk
Yeah,
away.
yeah,
I need some
yeah.
separation from that.
I feel like it really only like feels good and like you can only really relate to it like if you are like emotionally in a
Hmm.
situation, right? If you're not there, you're like are having a good day and like trying to
Yeah,
enjoy your coffee, like yeah, like I'm gonna go over there.
yeah, because I haven't been in those situations like they have.
Yeah. I mean, just think about some of those ICU techs, right? Like literally like in like critical like ICUs, right? Just like literally caring for like the sickest of the sick patients, like not necessarily having a whole lot of control other than like maybe like comfort, right? And then like watching a lot of them die like day in and day out, like that's a mentally taxing job. And I really feel for those ICU technicians. So like being able to like laugh about situations, right? Like the patient die and then, crapped himself or something, right? Like horrible situation, but like you're already having a horrible day and like it's gonna get worse and worse and worse. Like, can we just like laugh at a poop joke real quick? Like, so yeah, yeah. Like again, not funny to a lot of people, but it actually has been found to be like quite healthy, like for those people in those positions to cope in that way.
What do you do outside of vet med?
So much. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So like I try to like really separate work from play and like my life as much as possible. You're probably like, yeah, he's lying because like I just told you, like
Yeah, I
I
was
kind
gonna
of like
say.
let me like do a lot of on-call work, but um I may be on call and even still like I'm separating work and play, like that's like the honest truth. I can't tell you how many times like Lily, my partner, has told me like, "Oh, they were trying to call you about something, and I looked, on my Find My and saw you're at the lake." And I'm like, "Oh crap!" You know what I mean? I can't tell you how many times I've been like fishing or something, and somebody wasn't able to get in touch with me or something. Because again, I truly try to like, um, separate myself from the hospital as much as possible and go do something and be active, right? And try and like fish, kayak, go ride my bike, like be outside with my dogs. Like why, sit here and watch TV when like they're literally sitting here staring at me to go do something. Like let's go to the lake and just throw the ball for a while, to like just do something. And so yeah, I mean I try to just be as active as possible. Um I let's see, I do some woodworking. I like really like to like do stuff around the house and like home improvement type things. So I love my lawn. Like I spend so much time on it. I'm sure like Lily thinks I love my lawn more than her. It's like not true. And then like obviously like planning things with her. Like we like are best friends and like try to like do something fun like every chance that we get. Like obviously I love working with her, but we, at work you've probably noticed like for the most part like we don't like advertise that we're together, right? I
Mhm.
think most people who work with us they probably don't even realize that we're together until like something said that's like a little bit like what you
I
know
didn't.
yeah, yeah. So like
Yeah.
when we're like at home like we really like try to do things together and like exercise together. Like today we went to the gym and like it was arm day, and we kind of like do like she's got this little app thing and so like whatever she's doing, like I just do it. And then afterwards we go get brunch or something. So let's try to like enjoy each other's company and have as much like disconnection from screens as possible.
Something to get you outside.
Mhm.
Do you think that it's a good idea for people in vet med to have animals of their own? I feel like that's might be a weird question, but I
Yeah.
know that there is at least an idea I've heard both in human med and in vet med. Like I've heard of pediatricians being like, this is like singular anecdotal
Mhm.
experiences, not
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
broad categories, but being like, yeah, I don't have kids because I work with kids, and
Hmm.
they're like they need that separation.
Yeah.
And then vets who are like, yeah, I don't have animals because I go to work and I'm working on animals all day, and like a lot of like rarely are the animals ever fine when they walk in.
Yeah.
Like that's not the job, and they're like, yeah, I need the separation where it's like I don't want to be thinking about my own dog while looking at this dog like actively bleeding out.
Mhm.
So how do you, I guess, what are your opinions on about vets having animals, and should they
Yeah.
like want to?
I would just think that'd be crazy. Like, how could you not? Like, I'm always like, first off, I always consider myself like a one dog person. Like, I just want one dog at a time, so I could like build like a really strong relationship with them. Um, Lily, like she's got a dog and like is definitely my dog now. Just kidding. She'll kill me if she heard that. But no, like we're definitely I'm a two dog person now. Like I got my dog, and then I've kind of adopted this crazy shepherd too. And like it's still in my mind, even though like I had kind of like strict pet limits, I'm always like, what's my next dog gonna be? So like I just can't imagine like not having a dog. Because they're just so grateful for like everything you do for them and like they're always like what are we gonna do now? And I just think that that's like nice to come home to. I don't know. I get if somebody doesn't want to have a dog if they're working with them all the time too, but I don't know. In my mind, I'm just like, I'm not gonna live long enough to have all the different breeds of dogs that I want to have. Like
You could have 8 dogs right now. Just go
no,
to the shelter.
no, no, I can't do that. I think owning like too many pets is definitely probably more common than people that don't have
Mhm.
enough. So,
I mean, it's easy to get a pet. You just go into the shelter like, "Please take one,
mm-hmm,
$50, go."
mm-hmm,
Um, no, one of the past interns, she finished up this past year. Um, I've known her since I was an undergrad and she was in vet school. And for the longest time, she was like, "Yeah, I don't want a dog, don't want a dog, don't want a dog," because she was busy. She worked very hard, one of the hardest working people I've ever met. And she got to third year, um, and adopted a dog. And I was like, "What happened? What, like you?" She's like, I know." And then now I have one, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm staying up late because it needs to be potty trained and all of
mm,
these things." And I was like, "It's stressing you out. Like, why did you do this?" And she, like a month, 2 months later, she was like, "Yeah, it was worth it."
yeah, yeah,
And she tried to convince me ever since to get a dog, and I'm still on the fence.
yeah,
It'll happen eventually. My excuse is I don't have a yard.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's a good excuse. I like personally like, and I don't hate puppies, but I say I hate puppies. I don't hate kittens, but I say I hate kittens. Like I love the old dogs. I agree. Like puppies, like that's definitely got to be a mistake. Like when you're super busy, like in vet school or starting a new career or something. Um, I can't imagine the stress. Like it's definitely doable, but like, why would you want to do that to yourself? Like if you're in that situation, you like really need a pet, like start with an older dog. Like they're so much cooler. They already have like personalities in most cases too. They're not just like this, like, I'm just gonna destroy things until I figure out what my personality is.
didn't you get your first dog while you were in your internship?
I got my first dog. Like, so I grew up with pets, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like, I couldn't have a pet in the dorms. So in undergrad, my first year, I was in the dorm, couldn't have a pet. I got a pet second year. And he was a rescue. Like he was like 4 or 5 years old. He's my Aussie. So yeah, he's my first one. And my best friend, like he got me through like undergrad. He got me through um, you know, vet school. And then it wasn't until like my internship, like he died my first year of my internship. Yeah, in my internship. So that was like so hard, like losing him. And then after I had some time to grieve, I like contacted, the rescue, a golden rescue in Portland area. And I just told them like my situation. I was like, I'm really busy right now. But like I think I'm ready for another dog. Like I want a dog that like I can take running because I was like really into running at the time. And like I don't know if y'all have one now, but just like I'm a veterinarian, like I'm gonna take really good care of them, and just like keep me in your books if something opens up, right? And so yeah, and then just one day they called me out of the blue and was like, we have this dog, seems pretty young and active, but you literally have to get her like in 24 hours or we're gonna like give her to somebody else or something. It was something like crazy like that. And I was like, all right, like let's do it. And so yeah, yeah, like I got her Stinky Grandma in
One
my
of the greatest
internship.
names.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Stinky Grandma, like I think I told you, like she's named after the rat, Stinky Grandpa that I treated in my internship. And like I think he was fine. Like I think he had like a little infection or something that I treated, but I just thought that was like such a wholesome name. And like I love like rat owners because like they all love their rats so much, or at least like all the ones that I've like treated, like they're so passionate about their rats, but they have such a short lifespan. And so I just like I respect those people, right? Like care for and love those animals so much with like such a short lifespan. And Stinky Grandpa, like that's a classic name. Yeah, like every vet should like have like some sort of like Word document or journal where they like just keep track of like all the awesome pet names that they hear, and like that one definitely is in there.
I think one of the ones that I heard this summer might have made the list. Galadriel was it?
That's awesome. Is that
Uh,
Lord of the Rings?
yeah,
Heck
I
yeah.
think that's what somebody said.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know when they
Hell
said
yeah.
it.
It's got to be the Elf Queen, I think.
Hmm.
Maybe. I could be wrong, but.
Wild,
Mhm.
wild. You pointed out one of your tattoos.
Mhm.
What else do you got?
Yeah, yeah. So I've got my veterinary tattoo arm. Like I thought about this tattoo when I was on a run one day. But I've got the blood bag that comes down. It says canine whole cowbell. Like one of the jokes that like one of my mentors would always say is like if you're, treating hemorrhagic shock and, you've gone through one unit of bag and they're still tachycardic, like they need more cowbell, up from the SNL skit. And then it was just like a thing, like, right, if they need another fluid bolus, like more cowbell. So it's canine whole cowbells, like what this blood bag is. It's canine 1.1 negative. It expires on May the 4th, 2021, just because like May the 4th be with you. And then it kind of comes down. It's got a sausage, so like all blood bags, they have what's called sausages on them, but they're like basically like crimped off in, so that if you wanted to do like a cross match or something, you could like break off
Mm.
this little thing, and it's like a sealed little sausage. But like I got like an actual sausage. And then as the blood comes down, it like kind of starts to turn into a rainbow in the drip set, and then it kind of rainbows around. It spells love on the inside of my arm, just because that's the best thing in the world. And then rolls around the elbow, and then it turns into the unicorn rainbow, which I think is like my favorite part of my tattoo. And then on the inside, you've got the cat that's being abducted by the UFO. And then on the back, there's a door that's opening, and it's kind of dark in there, and there's a hand that's reaching out holding a balloon. And it's supposed to be like Pennywise's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
hand
Yeah.
coming out of like a door to another dimension. And I want to get like another door somewhere else on my body that's like the other part of him like coming through.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's like one of my favorite tattoos is the sleeve. Um, Audrey at Arsenal Tattoo, like she's done like most of my work. But yeah, like most of my body's covered. This was my first like visible tattoo, but like my whole torso, my back. I have a butt cheek tattoo. It's a T-bone steak.
Oh my, why?
Yeah, so it was like for my meats judging. So
Oh
yeah, I think I told
yeah.
you like meats judging. So like whenever I finished meats judging, or no, I think it was after like I won the quiz bowl. So it was like quiz bowl, we won national
Hmm.
championships. So yeah, I had to get the T-bone steak on the butt cheek. Um,
Did
uh,
everybody get that?
no,
Oh
no,
man.
no. Everybody else was good old Christian men and women. They wouldn't deface their body in such a way.
Did you always know you wanted tattoos?
Yeah, like I remember like my like I feel like the first time that I can remember back to like wanting a tattoo, like I think I was in standing in the line for like a slide at like Hurricane Harbor or like maybe like Typhoon Lagoon at Disney World or something. I mean, I just remember seeing like this dude who like had a tattoo, like he wasn't wearing a shirt or something. I was just like, that is so cool. Like I want to do that. And like that was probably like at least when I think back to like how long ago did you want a tattoo? It was like definitely when I was like a child. Yeah.
Hmm. And did they do that entire sleeve all at once, or?
No, no, this sleeve, like this was probably like 48 hours worth of work.
Mm.
Yeah, it was a long time. And like most like there are some sleeves that can get done in a session. Like, like there's some sleeve, but like the detail on this, like um and like my artist, like she takes a lot of pride in her work, and I let her take like as much time as she wants. I'm like, she knows, I'm like, I'd rather you take your time, like more money, more sessions, doesn't matter to me, like whatever you want. I too like give her a lot of free, like I didn't know what it was going to look like. I like knew I wanted the blood bag, I wanted to spell love, I wanted to make a unicorn, I wanted to, but like that's all. And I wanted to be kind of crazy colored. It's kind of Anne Frank style, like I like the Anne Frank vibes, and it's a little bit more feminine. Like I just like the her touch that she puts on it. And you know what I mean, like it's definitely, I feel like me, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could like have if all my tattoos like have her similar kind of like feminine and Frank style to it. And I don't know, I just think it's cool. Like I
Anne
like,
Frank.
so
Is
Anne
that her
Frank
name?
is, I could be wrong, but what is the name of the binders that everybody had in elementary school that had like the unicorns on it, and they're like pink and like it's gotta be, it's probably not Anne Frank, it's something else.
Oh, with Lisa Frank?
Lisa
Lisa
Frank,
Frank.
heck yeah, yeah, like Lisa Frank for sure. Yeah.
Huh, I don't. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like it's like a kid's vibe,
Uh huh.
but it's also very like girly, right? Like if you were like an elementary school boy, you'd be like I would never have that binder, right? So, like, I don't know. To me, it's almost kind of like a troll that, like, I put it on my body, like,
Mm,
everywhere too. Because like, definitely as a kid, I would not have had that binder. Like, I would have gotten, like, I don't know, like, the basketballs or something. I don't
mhm.
know.
That's funny. No, it does match your vibe.
Yeah.
Um, you wanna get more? Other than the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Pennywise
So
one?
I'm working on my leg right now. So like I got a bunch of roots on my leg because I want like my leg to be roots coming up and then at my waistline, like I want there to be a tree that like starts in my back. So I basically want like a whole tree that goes down my whole body. But the foot and the leg was hard, man. Like in all honesty, like had a lot of tattoos, but like when I got my foot tattoo, like I had to be off it for like 2 weeks. Like I didn't real I'm usually like tough it out and like I just go to work like the next day after most tattoos, but like you physically couldn't do that.
Mhm.
Like
Your
my
entire foot
foot
was
was like
swollen?
literally swollen like a fat sausage. So yeah, no, I definitely couldn't go to work. And so and like just the whole leg tattoo, like honestly, like I think I'm just up and walking around so much that like with the inflammation, like it just gets so swollen and it hurts. So yeah, I'm hoping like as I get higher up on my leg, it's not going to be as like debilitating. But I didn't realize it was going to be so. And like when you read about it online, like I wasn't prepared at all. Like I didn't Google it at all. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get a foot tattoo. I might go to work like in a couple days later. And like when I Googled it, it was like, yeah, most people wait like 2 to 3 weeks after getting a foot tattoo before going to work. And I like
Mm,
was like reading that like with my foot tattoo.
you're like, "Oh, a little too late."
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
What it do all of your tattoos mean something? Like, what does the tree mean?
Um, I I mean, have a so on my back, like I have cardinal directions like in like animals, like in Tibetan animals. And so it's sort of like a north, south, east, west. There's like a different like animal that like depicts each one. And they're like mythical creatures sort of thing. So I kind of got them on my back. And I just feel like the tree of life kind of like ties them all together. And I just like plants too. Like I feel like most of my tattoos are like nature related in a way. I've got like a pug on the back of my leg, like the frogs, and like I got tadpole. So like there's like the kind of tadpole life cycle like on my chest, like koi fish over here, lion's face or like this like kind of monster face on my belly, a tiger on this rib cage, and like a alligator. So it's like kind of like all animal themed. And like I don't really have like plants, but like I think plants are so cool and like important. And it's like I just like, all right, I'm gonna turn my whole leg and back into a tree just to like homage to like plants.
That's sick. That's it's way more relaxed than how I would ever think about getting a tattoo.
Yeah.
I've pondered the idea of getting a small tattoo, and
Yeah.
then there's a video of Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about tattoos,
Hmm.
and he was like, "Yeah, I would never get one because he he doesn't like the idea of having something that's permanent that wouldn't change on his body. So like
Hmm.
you can buy a painting, put it up on a wall, and be like, I want to get another painting,
Yeah.
but can't. I guess you can kind of change
Oh,
things,
it'll
but you could
change. It's
add,
just not gonna change the way you want it to change.
yeah.
And I think that's part of it. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm a troll. And like I feel like tattoos are the ultimate troll. Like they're permanent. Like they're definitely not permanent. Like and so I don't know. I think that there's like something almost funny to that. Um Also like I definitely respect the like concept of like I don't want to get like a random tattoo that doesn't mean anything to me as like my first tattoo, right? Like I'm gonna respect that for sure. But once you already have a bunch too, like I think you definitely get to the point where you're like, all right, like let's
I
just
want
find
more.
something funny.
Yeah.
And like definitely like I've heard people like, oh, like you're not gonna think that's funny like 10 years from now. Like I don't know, like I'm pretty sure I laugh at like the same stupid stuff I would laugh at like when I was like a middle schooler. So I don't know if I like just haven't matured mentally in that way, but like definitely like to me like the funniest and my favorite tattoos are the ones that like I just got because they're silly, like, and I think they're funny, and like I'm gonna get it. Um, like I want a tramp stamp, right? Like just like funny tattoos. Like it just is like I don't know, it's a troll to me, and I like being a troll. And I like the fact that like people there's some people that were like, how could you do that? And like there's just like something about like I'm gonna do it like just to annoy those people in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like the
Yeah.
if you tell me not to, I'm definitely
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
do it.
exactly.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
don't know.
Maybe one day I'll get a tattoo.
Yeah.
Maybe. Do you know there's a now retired bodybuilder, Chris Bumstead?
I don't think so.
He I think I'm getting this right. He has tattoos on his forearms, and they kinda look like gauntlets, and I was like, "If I ever get a tattoo, it'd be something like that."
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, gauntlets.
yeah, but I kinda have too hairy of forearms. I don't I they'd probably cover it up. Um, let's talk about your podcast.
Yeah.
What is that all about?
All right. So it's pretty much information crammed into 1 hour as I can cram into you for your brain while you're trying to study sort of podcast. So I don't think it's going to be like your typical podcast that like most people are, familiar with if you listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm trying to appeal to people that are studying primarily for boards in like emergency and critical care, which is a very, very small market, right? Like there's a very small niche that I'm trying to fill. But it is truly those people that are like already super busy, working, 10, 12-hour ER shifts, multiple times a week, and then having to recover a day after working their shifts. And then they get like 2 days off, right? Or maybe they exercise for like an hour after their shifts. And they just like don't really want to study on the 2 days off that they have, right? And so like I'm trying to come up with a way that they can refresh on topics that like they've already learned, and then build upon that with like the new information, right? And get all of that in 1 hour, kind of in a focused talk, that is at, I would say, a fast pace. Like if you're not an auditory learner, like you might not even like it. Like I think it is relatively fast paced. That is, unless you already have some background knowledge. So again, I think it's really a niche. It's going to appeal to those people that already have some emergency experience, or are like already are in the trenches trying to learn it, right, and they can relate to what I'm saying with like specific cases they just saw or something. But again, I think really, if I was gonna like say who is it for, like it's if you're studying for boards. Like if you're studying for boards, like this is gonna be what you need, to potentially listen to, like maybe after you study that topic, right? You just studied CPR. So now go decompress, go for a bike ride and then listen to like my perspective on it or my take on it while I sprinkle in, the most recent literature that was published on it. So that's what I'm going for. And like, why am I doing it? Because it doesn't exist right now. Like if you are that person, you want to like learn more. Like I said, like you're that ER clinician who's like already feeling the stress and like you're stressed because you don't want to study, right? It's stressing you out because you're like, I want to watch TV. I've been working, and like that's stressing. Like maybe like this is that compromise where you're like, okay, like I can do that, listen to this podcast, like, while I cook dinner or something, so I that doesn't exist right now. There are a couple, like I want to say two or three like small animal emergency critical care podcasts that I've seen, but it doesn't look like they've like been putting out any episodes lately. And there is one that is released about 30 or 35 podcasts that I've seen, but the last one they released was many years ago. So I think I'm, want to try and you know pump out content, and to make something that's like reliable for those people that want to be able to what I mean. I want it to be something that like they can count on. All right, like if I can just listen to that one podcast like every 2 weeks, right, at least I'm doing something. And so yeah, that's kind of, I feel like, my motivation for doing it, what I'm going for.
Do you think that general practitioners could listen to it and gain stuff from it or should listen to it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, like the information in it is not going to be like anything very far from, what you learned at one point in time when you were in vet school. And a lot of what I'm teaching too is like really practical and you can apply that even in general practice, right? Like my first couple of episodes are talking about your triage exam. That's the first episode. The second episode is your exam of the patient in the ICU. So like really practical things. At the end of every episode as well, there's about like 5 minutes or so where I try to run through kind of the highlights of it. Kind of like if you take away anything from this episode, like these are the things, right? And usually those are things that like any general practitioner is going to be able to apply. And I think you're going to know by the title of that podcast as well if that's going to be something that you're going to want to listen to. So I don't think every episode is going to necessarily apply to you. But one topic, or 1 hour that I cover is like about the endothelial glycocalyx, right? And everybody laughs, right? Critical is endothelial glycocalyx, right? But at the same time, like I think there's a lot of useful information about the glycocalyx that even general practitioners like can learn and could potentially like think about when even evaluating healthy patients, and they start to see one of their healthy patients they see day in day out start to show some sort of symptoms and they're getting sick from something, right? To be able to like know how this endothelial glycocalyx could be potentially affecting this patient that is now getting sick and I normally see them help, right? Like I think that can still be really useful information. And so, but again, it might not be the thing that you want to learn about if you also have to be, up to speed on all of the things that I don't know about primary care, right? It might not be the topic you want to listen to. So sure, skip that one. But there might be other things down the line that like we'll hit on that will be super helpful for general practitioners.
Because I've listened to a couple of them now,
Mm-hmm.
and the one on the recover
Mm-hmm.
guidelines and CPR, um, like it, you said it was dense, and I agree. I
Mm-hmm.
had to pause
It's
multiple
hard.
times, and I was taking notes, and now I have like 4 to 5 pages of notes on that entire, which
Yeah.
you know could have just printed out a transcript about what you talked
Literally.
about, but
Yeah.
no, it forced me to actually listen, and then like, okay, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Write it down, kind of thing. And then now I'll find myself just like scrolling on Instagram, and for whatever reason, I found like the niche of these human MDs talking about the recover guidelines,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they don't say the recover guidelines, but they're talking about CPR, and they're
Yeah.
talking about the same things you're talking about. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I know, like I remember this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny that it's stuck in my brain, the amount that it did, because at this point I'm just used to like watching slides and reading
Yeah.
textbooks, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just very different. And I think it's a bridge. It can be a bridge for a
Yeah.
lot of people to be like, all right, this is something that, it's low stakes to put on a 45 to an hour podcast about this subject. And, you get halfway done, you're like, do I want to keep going? Yes, no. And then you get that chance to make that decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, other than being subscribed to those journal articles, which cost money for all
Mm-hmm.
of the, right, there's too many for you to be like, I'm focusing on internal medicine,
Mm-hmm.
dermatology, ophthalmology, dentistry, like all of it, especially as a general practitioner. Um, this is like an easy way to kind of keep up to date, especially with, I feel like situations that when I spent time in at a general practice, there were a handful of times where people would walk in the door and they're like, my dog isn't breathing and you got to know what's going on, or
Mm-hmm.
something is happening. Like, can you help us? And um, sometimes they had to say no because of like supplies
Yeah.
and what they had at the clinic. But other times they were like, yeah, let's go to the back and see what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's outside the realm of
No.
a GP.
No, like my like when people are like, what made you want to do like emergency and critical care? Like my memory that like again, kind of like I think back to in that question is I was working, general practice, very slow. She specialized in like herbal medicine. She did acupuncture and just like vaccine appointments, like healthy pets. I feel like very rarely like saw like sick pets unless it was, like kind of chronic things, right? Like chronic
Hmm.
things that we were comfortable managing, or she was comfortable managing. And one day, like I don't ever remember any emergencies, like truly, but one day, like the only emergency I remember is like someone just like we closed, like we just closed for the day, and like you hear like frantic knocks on the front door, and I can't remember who opened. It's either a receptionist or it was the practice owner, the veterinarian, and like the lady's just like holding like the limp dog, and she's like, "Oh, my dog just was hit by a car," and like it was so cool, like because again, my like everything I knew about this vet was like she just gives vaccines and like
Hmm.
plays with healthy pets, you know, like the typical thing that people think about vets, like you just play with pets all day, right? Like that was kind of like my impression of her and being like an awesome business owner too, right? Like and everything that goes along with that. But I'd never seen her as like a resuscitator, right? But no, she like snatched that dog like out of that owner's hands, like ran to the back, like she's literally running to the back with this dog doing like mouth to snout like resuscitation, like throws it on the table, starts doing compressions, and like you know what I mean? This is me like in like middle or high school, and I'm just like nowhere near like being able to even help right in that situation, and just like blown away like watching this thing happen. And I was like, that's what I want to do. Like I thought veterinary medicine was cool, but like that is cool, you know? So
We can bleep it out, but what clinic was that called?
it was the clinic in the
No shit.
colony. Yeah.
That was the first clinic I worked at.
No
Yeah.
way. Yeah, Dr. Wild or
What's your name?
so there was a red hair that was there. She moved to she moved to Canada. And then one of my classmates actually like went there after after we graduated. She went straight back to the colony animal clinic, but you probably weren't there then.
I was there for
Um
only a summer.
and Dr. Holt was like the original owner of the practice. Like he's the one who built the
Yeah.
practice. And then Dr. Wild took it over after him. And then yeah, there must have been somebody in between where you were there, because that was when I was in high school.
I remember the summer I was there, there was a new grad that joined the team the year prior
Mhm,
and was there for a year and then moved on to actually do ER stuff
mhm.
at another clinic because, right, you said that was a GP. Rarely was there ever ER situations, but uh, no, when I went in was actually the summer after my freshman year of college, or maybe it was before my freshman year, and it was COVID, and so they weren't even letting people inside. Um,
Okay.
I had to call them and be like, "Hey, can you get my resume?" And they were the only people that said yes. Um,
Interesting. I bet it was one of my classmates then, because like I was practicing the year of COVID, and she had to have been a new grad at that
Doctor
time.
Doctor Vera?
Yep. Yeah.
No
That's my
way.
classmate. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
Christina Vera.
Huh. I still have her. I still have her card.
Yeah.
Um, that's crazy.
Uh-huh. Small world.
What made you choose to enter vet med?
Um, Definitely just like a love for animals growing up, like and wanting to be able to, right? You're always like hearing when you're a kid, like, oh, you don't work a day of your life, you love what you do, right? And like I was like, what do I love? Like animals, like, you know, so to me it just like right, just trying to follow that advice and it made sense to me to try and be a veterinarian because then maybe I would, you know, not feel like I'm working. Yeah, you know, so um and you know we all know that that's not necessarily true, like work is still work, but at the same time like I do think it is somewhat true. But that's probably like the main thing that drove me with like my biggest like hero being Steve Irwin. You know, like he was just like so cool and like right, the animal whisperer. Like, um, if you haven't seen Steve Irwin, like right, the Australian who crocodile hunter, like started out like um just rescuing crocodiles. Like what? Like literally like wrestling crocodiles off people's properties and relocating them into safer environments, like literally risking your life to help saltwater crocodiles.
Mm.
Insane. And he just like seemed like he was having so much fun and like would get bit or like beat up by these animals and just be like, oh, he's a feisty one, eh? And like laugh it off. Like I just thought that was so cool and like I want to be like that dude. So yeah, like probably like just again growing up with a lot of animals, having like mom and dad that like you know was fine with a house of pets, and you know kind of fostering that, and then just watching Steve Irwin on TV was like, yeah, that seems like what I want to do.
What kept you in it? Because You're not exactly
Yeah.
wrestling crocodiles right
Oh,
now.
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think, like, you kind of, like, dig your hole and you're like, "I can't get out, like, this is what I'm doing," and, like, I feel like you kinda get laser focused too, because like I said, your first year undergrad, like, you go through that mental, struggle of, like, so is this really what I want to do? Because like it's gonna suck for a really long time until I get to that point. And like if you like, yeah, I don't really know what else I want to do. Like you're like, all right, I guess we're doing this, and I hope I can do it. So I think that's kind of what kept me in it is like I don't really know what else I'm gonna do that I would like, and I this is already the other thought that I had, and careers that I was looking at is like military, right? I was like, they'll always take me. And then being a chef, like I really liked like cooking, and I don't know if you saw, did you see The Bear?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, did
Yeah.
you feel like, oh, so I would say like whenever you get like into practice, like I feel like I relate so much to them, and like probably even still you can probably relate a little bit, like how much they have to train to get to where they are. And I feel like I really really relate to like cooks and chefs, like in um high end cuisine, and that like learn those trades. And um I feel like I basically kind of did that, but I'm making a little bit more money doing it, and like the hours are probably a little bit better at this point. It was very obvious, like even in high school, that like, yeah, that looks like a fun career, but you're not gonna make a lot of money, and you're gonna work your butt off. And so I think that's what like again kind of steered me towards like going to school, and either that or military, right? And the fact that I got an A&M is why I didn't go into the military.
Did you ever consider human medicine?
No, no, yeah, like, I don't think the thought ever crossed my mind.
Because I feel like from the outside, I feel like the rest of the world usually looks at vets and they go,
Mhm.
why? Like,
Yeah,
you can do the same thing, get more money, and
yeah.
like
Oh,
it's
trust me, it makes perfect sense now. Yeah, yeah, no, like, thought never crossed my mind, I don't think, like, all
interesting.
throughout. Like, my mom was in the medical field, like, she was, like, a, medical technologist, so she, like, basically, like, received samples in a lab and, like, ran, the diagnostics on those samples. So, like, I, like, kind of did have some background knowledge, and she had friends that were doctors and things. But yeah, no, like I think I just wanted to go work on animals.
And then as an animal science major, did getting exposed to the agricultural world draw you at all to wanting to work with large animals?
Um, I would say like it made me like potentially want to like have them as pets, which I know is like horrible to say.
No, dude, my beef production
Uh,
professor, he was like, "Yeah, we have cattle and our daughter loves them.
yeah,
We can't
yeah.
do any like they are our
Exactly,
pets."
exactly. Like that would be the hard thing is like I would love to like have like a couple of goats, some chickens, some, couple of head of cattle, right? And on a, 10, 20 acres of land that just roam around and do what they want. But like I don't think I would ever like sell them. Like, goats are hilarious, right? Like so I think that's basically what I got out of my animal science, like is that, these animals are cool. I felt like in a way too, because I did a lot of like animal research, like in undergrad as well. And I felt like in a way, like doing those things, studying animal science, doing the animal research was like um, contradictory to like what my end goal was in a way, right? Like food production and like questionable animal welfare, right? And so I think that I'm very happy to have like made it through all of that, and now I'm in a position where I can help animals. And I always like wonder like there are paths to veterinary medicine where you don't have to like potentially involve yourselves in food production and right like animal research in order to get to veterinary medicine. Again, I wish I could have found that path, but no, I feel like truly like getting to where I am, I like feel like I took like all of the most difficult possible paths.
I mean, it's probably for the best because now you can speak to on all of those topics.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I don't foresee myself working in the agricultural world, but after animal science as an undergrad experience, like I can talk to all my friends who are going to do those things. And I'm
Hmm.
like, hey, like, I'm glad you're doing that. And there's some common ground there. They just go farther off the deep end.
Yeah.
And I'm like, someone needs to do it.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
glad it's
exactly
you.
right, right. I always like think I don't know if you've seen um what is that movie with Adam Sandler and he like wins, he like gets a bunch of money donated to him. But there's basically a scene where he's like questioning all these people in this audience, like all these like millionaires, like super rich people in this like high end area, and like questioning like, what did you want to do when you were a little kid? And he's like, I want to be a veterinarian. He's like, what are you now? He's like, I'm a owner of a bunch of meat slaughtering plants. Adam Sandler's like, oh, kind of went the other way there. And I was like, it's really not that hard to end up like that
Oh
guy,
yeah. Yeah.
like, so I kind of feel for that guy. But when I was a kid and I saw that scene, I was like, ha ha ha, yeah, like how did that happen? And it's like, I actually kind of felt like I was in that position at one point in time.
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, it's not hard to fall into those positions when you're trying to just help animals, right?
I mean, did you have this experience where in undergrad at some point in time, usually early on, one of the professors like, all right, if you want to go to vet school, raise your hand.
Yes, dude. Like, yeah, yeah. I can't remember what his name was, but yeah, yeah, that's
And yeah,
exactly what he's. And he's like, dude, that was like such. I'll never forget that too, because it's such like an empowering like feeling. Because he's like, yeah, like raise your hand if you want to go to vet school, and like literally every single person raised their hand. And then he was like, what did he say? He's like, oh, just so you know, only about like three of you are actually going to get in, or something like that.
yeah,
And I was like, I want to be one of those three.
yeah. I had a similar mindset to for his credit. He was the one that it was over a Zoom call, and I remember the Zoom call. We were going over the male reproductive anatomy, and the hormones associated with it. I don't know why I remember that being the lecture, but and then at the end of it, he was like, "Yeah, the average GPA of the people who get into vet school is a 3.8," and that was the day that I was like, "I am going to like strive for all A's in
Hmm.
order to get to that 3.8." Um, and so, and then like it was a different class that he taught where he was like, "Raise your hand, do all that,"
Hmm.
and I was the same way. I was like, "You're saying that I'm not going to be able to do it, and I'm going to do
Hmm.
it just to prove you
Exactly,
wrong."
exactly.
And also that, right, because he works in ag. I believe he's a PhD. He didn't go to vet school. And like he lives in that agricultural world.
Mhm,
And I met so many people who very much could have gone to vet school. Like they had the grades, they were smart, they had the passion to help animals. And they're like, I think I enjoy the rest of it more. The production and the business world and the thinking more like an animal science major instead
mhm,
of thinking like a veterinarian
yeah,
because they went out and they saw out veterinary experiences and they were like, yeah, I just don't want to do that job. I want to do this other job. And so it was really interesting to see those people like split off. And I think it's really easy to look at it at the beginning and be like, yeah, only three out of what, 200, 250 in a class like that are going to get into vet school that
mhm,
year, like um, after the 4 years, and be like, oh, it's because all the 247 just weren't smart enough. And it's like, well, that's
yeah,
not true.
yeah, no,
That's just not how it
yeah,
works.
yeah.
For anybody who's still listening, what is something, just it could be anybody, what would you say? It could be a student, it could be someone outside of medicine, it could be an owner, it could be a high schooler, graduate student, anybody.
What would I say?
Yeah, like any piece of advice, any piece of knowledge.
So I'll say my mantra. So when I was in freshman year of undergrad, right around the time when the movie Inception came out, um, remember lucid dreaming, right? Like I don't know if like you like looked at into that at all, but like I got like into like lucid dreaming and like being able to like be aware in my dreams, right? Like very like motivated. It's like, why wouldn't I like want to be aware while sleeping? That'd be awesome, right? And so like got into like reading about lucid dreaming, and then found out that like actually in order to be good at that, like you have to have some like self-awareness and like mental awareness and consciousness. And like the best way to do that's to meditate. And so like I got into meditation and like got into like reading Buddhism, and like it's interesting, like I'm not not religious, but like I was like again studying how to meditate and how to become more aware, right? Conscious in your waking life, so that you could then become conscious like in your dreams. And like it works, dude. Like lucid dreaming is a real thing. You can do it. But I actually feel like I grew a lot from that experience, like studying some of these like Buddhist like thoughts and kind of developed like a passion for that. And one of like my mantras that um I say to myself regularly, and I think it's probably useful for a lot of people to hear, is I'm of the nature to grow old. There's no way to escape growing old. I'm of the nature to have ill health. There's no way to escape having ill health. I'm of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All things that are dear to me and everyone that I love are of the nature to change. There's no way to escape being separated from them. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the grounds upon which I stand. And I just kind of like memorized this, and it sounds like kind of messed up when you hear some of it, but I think it like kind of like prepares you for a lot of the things that are normal in life. And I think if you kind of like think about that and develop your own way to kind of remind yourself of like life is life and things are going to happen, it makes it a little bit easier when they do.
Grounding.
Hmm.
Hmm. Thanks, dude.
Yeah. Thank you for
Awesome.
having me. That was
Dr.
fun.
Wheeler, everybody.
Thank you.
Dude, that was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice work.